And Kofi, I come to you especially because Henry Naboche says that he's headed to court once again on a very similar matter. But let me start with Kwame. Say you say you are not a lawyer. Let's go to go. So government to welcome additional 40 deportees from US. The foreign minister has been speaking, and he has been constantly stating that, well, this is just a memorandum of understanding. I think that by the end of this conversation, we're going to be ending the conversation whether or not a memorandum of understanding is an agreement or it's not an agreement. But before I come to you, let me go on the phone and then engage Henry Naboche and Nana B. Thank you for joining us this morning. So you're headed to court?
Directed my lawyers, Nana Ajibakwa and Lenin Anania J. Clearly, the action of His Excellency the President and the Foreign Minister is a record and a complete that for our and for start is to start. Before that in 2015.
Maybe would you just be kind to just reposition yourself? I'm not sure what the network is up to this morning, but let's try again, see if we can hear you clearly.
Is it better?
Yes. Thank you.
Is it better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I was saying that in 2016, myself and Madame Bamfo, we took a similar matter to court. You recall the Gitmo 2 case. A similar matter. This was a case where the then Mahama administration had again entered into a certain agreement, whatever definition they ascribed to it, and they had received 2 detainees from Guantanamo Bay. This matter was brought before the court, and challenging the legality of President Mahama entering into that particular agreement with the U.S. And the Supreme Court was very clear. The Supreme Court declared the actions of the then Mahama administration as unconstitutional and illegal. And just for purposes of our viewers and our listeners, let me read a portion to you. This was by Justice Sophia Kufu. Consequently, we hold that upon the true and proper interpretation of Article 75 of the 1992 Constitution, the President of the Republic of Ghana, in agreeing to the transfer of Mahmoud Umar Mohammed Ben Atib and Khalid Mohammed Salih Al-Dubi to the Republic of Ghana, required the ratification by an act of Parliament or a resolution of Parliament supported by the vote of more than 1/2 of all the MPs in Parliament. And by virtue of the failure to obtain such ratification, the agreement is unconstitutional. And I listened to Okudzeto Ablakwa, and I was amazed. Look, the NDC now they have an overwhelming majority in Parliament. Why this complete reckless disregard for our Constitution? And this matter, that is the Gitmo 2 matter, it happened under Mahama's first administration. So clearly, we were not expecting such disregard of our Constitution from this administration, especially when the Supreme Court had clearly determined this matter. And again, Okudzeto was trying to define the said agreement in certain words. He says that it's an MOU. And for that matter, when it develops or when it progressed into a full-blown agreement, then it will be brought before Parliament. I mean, again, this is a dangerous reason from even Okudzeto. Why? Because in the same matter, in the same Gitmo 2 matter, the Supreme Court ruled that whatever definition, in any form, in any shape, however, whether you call it no verbal, you call it diplomatic cables, or whatever it is a certain agreement that will put some obligation on Ghana. And clearly, the president told us that already 14 of these deportees are already here. So whatever MOU and whatever is contained in this MOU, we have already received some deportees.
But is an MOU enforceable? Is an MOU enforceable, which means that the foreign minister and the president can decide that, well, we are not interested anymore, we return them? Is it enforceable?
What we are saying is that now we have received them. The president said that we have received 14.
Yes, and 14 more to come. In fact, Henry, with 14 more to come, but my question really is that if you look at the nature of an MOU, despite you drawing our attention to the fact that in that case, it says that any form of agreement is an MOU typically or legally binding, where the foreign minister and the president can say that, well, because it's just an MOU, you cannot force us to enforce it when we are tired. Maybe we have a memorandum of understanding that we're keeping them here maybe forever or for this number of months. They can decide one day that, well, we don't think we want to keep them anymore, we can return them. Does that make you feel any better?
No. Again, for purposes of our viewers, our listeners, let me go back to the judgment again. The language of Article 75 is perfectly clear. The article forms part of the set of provisions governing the role of executive arm of government in Ghana's international relations. The scope of the article deals with treaties in general. The body of the text makes reference to treaties, agreements, and conventions. It is also clear that the instrument referred to relates to Ghanaian international relations with other countries or groups of countries. But the article requires that such instruments must be ratified by Parliament.
Right.
The Constitution makes no mention of any formal distinction that are dependent on the formality with which such an instrument is formatted or brought into being. From the aforementioned principle of constitutional interpretation in Ghana, there is no doubt that where, by various forms of documentation, please listen to this part very well, by various forms of documentation, the government of Ghana binds the Republic of Ghana with certain international agreements. Let me take it again. When government of Ghana binds the Republic of Ghana to certain obligations in relation to another country or group of countries, an international agreement comes into existence. Taking into account the substance of Exhibit A, we are of no doubt that despite the fall in an obligation on the part of Ghana to the USA, whereby in Parliamentary, Ghana binds herself to receive and resettle the said 2% and assume that for at least 2 years or longer, if warranted by circumstances, these persons are kept under the condition. This agreement is unconstitutional.
Okay.
And it should have been brought before Parliament. So the judgment was very clear.
Please stay with me, Henry, especially because some people may have not heard exactly what the foreign minister said. Let me just draw the attention to what the foreign minister said, and we'll pick up on this conversation. Stay with me.
Where he doesn't condemn the sanctions, the U.S. sanctions on Cuba, even though we have great relations with the Americans. Recently, you know that we have an understanding with them to accept West African nationals who have been pouring into our country. At the same time, we are maintaining great ties with Cuba. We're receiving a lot of Cuban medical doctors, the Cuban Medical Brigade. So we are a country that ought to be studied. How we are able to navigate
since you brought the, I take that.
Really
since you brought the U.S.
great relations.
Prisoner issue, I listened to the president when he met us on the 10th, a week ago today, and he did admit that our relationship with the U.S., even though it was okay, was not necessarily at the best of places because of Mr. Trump's policies, his tariffs. So it's a bit baffling for us to, in a sense, do the U.S. this favor of receiving 14 deportees who are not even Ghanaians into our country. I mean, Mr. Trump hosted 5 African presidents in the second term. Mr. Mahama wasn't one of them. So I'm not sure Ghana and US are as cozy as they probably were when Mr. Obama was president and Mahama was here. So why did we agree to this?
So let's be clear. We didn't agree to this because we agree with President Trump's immigration policies. We are not doing the US a favor. Okay. We are doing our fellow Africans a favor. We are offering them refuge. We are offering them succor. We are offering them hope. We want them to come back home and be comfortable. We solidarize with them when we see those images, the arrests, the violation of their rights, being detained against their will, and it's as though nobody wants to take them. So it was purely on humanitarian basis, and we have made clear that we did not accept any financial benefit whatsoever. We are doing this because we want to continue to position Ghana as that country which has always been the Mecca for Africans, for freedom fighters. We will avail ourselves to help fellow Africans in distress.
So pardon my ignorance.
So it is not about
fair enough, pardon my ignorance. If you have 14 Africans, 1 Nigerian, 13 Nigerians, 1 Gambian, why wouldn't their governments take them? Why do we have to take them?
Yes, so you do know that the Americans have been approaching governments they consider friendly. That's what, at least when they engage me, and I've been to the State Department on numerous occasions for these talks, and they have indicated that they are approaching countries they consider friendly countries,
despite the
allies.
The tariffs.
You know, the tariffs.
The 10%.
The tariffs were general, really.
Okay.
He slapped it on all countries, so they have said that don't use that to judge our relations. Everybody, you know, received.
The MCC too.
Received.
We are not getting.
Trump's. Yes, and really for the MCC, it was our own doing.
AGOA is also off.
The PDS and all of that. Yes.
But we are still a friendly country.
We are clearly a friendly country because they approached us.
Okay.
And I think that if you look at the region, in terms of what we are doing with the Americans, the strategic cooperation we have, even with intelligence sharing, with security, we have a lot going on in health. Even despite the withdrawal of U.S. AID support, there's still a lot of cooperation in the health sector. You take the energy sector, communication sector. So there's a wide spectrum of cooperation that the two countries enjoy. And it is within that spirit. Remember that we are the 5th African country after Rwanda, Uganda, Eswatini, and another country. We are the 5th country and the only country country in West Africa. The only country so far approached in West Africa by the Americans. And we thought that, look, West Africans already under the ECOWAS protocol can visit any country visa-free, stay for 90 days. So on principle, on humanitarian grounds, Pan-African solidarity, let us accept our fellow West Africans. And let's make the point that Ghana is your home. We are not going to allow you to
accept them
distressed.
to keep them here or accept them to send them back to their countries.
So the choice is theirs, really. For 90 days, if they want to stay here, they can stay. But so far, all of them have indicated that they want to go back after some time. And we've been facilitating that. I can reveal to you that we are expecting another 40.
Another 40?
Another 40 in the next few days.
Of which nationalities?
West Africans. The understanding we have is that it will be West Africans. And don't forget that...
Do you vet them before they come?
Yes, we vet them.
What caveats do you give the Americans?
So we have said that...
Who is not acceptable?
Hardened criminals, convicted criminals. When the background check reveals that you've associated with terrorism, with violent extremism, you are a very violent person. You are on a certain Interpol wanted list for violent crimes. Because we have the data, you will not be allowed in our country. So it's really people who probably
why didn't you ratify the MOU with Parliament?
Yes, so it's an MOU at this stage, just an understanding, and MOUs are not ratified. But
really?
as the discussions continue,
but, honorable,
yeah, if it is elevated to an agreement,
the Guantanamo 3, some people took the matter to court, and I think the Supreme Court held that whatever name you give it, when two countries come up with an arrangement, that places obligations on both of them. Whether you call it a treaty, a contract, it requires ratification. It was a majority decision. Only one person dissented. So I'm a bit surprised you're saying because it's an MOU, it means that it oughtn't have gone to Parliament. The judgment was very clear on the Guantanamo 3, that Article 75 was violated, which says international agreements must go through Parliament. And you are a 4th-term MP, so at least you could have gone to Parliament. And you have a massive majority. So what's the problem?
No, I agree with you. And that is why I said at the press conference I held a couple of days ago that when this is elevated beyond an MOU and it's a full agreement, we will go to Parliament under Article 75 and have it ratified. At this point, it is just a loose understanding.
The agreement is enforced. But how can you enforce? How can you enforce something called a loose agreement? That is already enforced. You've brought 14. You're bringing 40.
Look, I've inherited so many MOUs that didn't go to Parliament for ratification, and
But because of the precedent of the Gitmo 3, I felt like this was, and you know this. So is it an oversight? Are you going to apologize for it, or you don't think you made a mistake?
No, it's not an oversight because we sought the Attorney General's advice.
Right, Henry, if I still have you, so he says that this is just a loose agreement, and because you're a lawyer, I think you cannot drag a loose agreement to courts for an enforcement, which means that this morning, if the president and the foreign minister feel like we're not in a good mood to be kind, it is happening now. The 14 are here, 40 are coming, but we change our mind. The countries in which they're taking them from cannot do anything to them. Would you feel better?
No, not at all. I mean, that is why I just read it out to you that despite the form in which whatever MOU, however you call it, has been drafted, the text couched, the intent creates a separation from Ghana. And maybe he is right and MOU yet is enforced. We are Deportees. And then he again announced on that same platform that Ghana can additional so clearly are in breach of 75. This just in and disregard which is, and I'm sorry, in a sense, if you had he meant that they rise of the Attorney General. And that is so scary. That the Attorney General, who is very respected lecturer, who many let's ratify the case Margaret Bamfo and Nana Besa. He should know better.
But maybe
either now my thinking is that either Okujetua Blakwa wanted a certain hole, a certain space to escape. That is why he brought in the Attorney General.
Escape from what? Escape from what?
Attorney General. No, that is what I'm saying. That if indeed the Attorney General preferred, delivered such an advice, that look, this is an MOU. Hell with Parliament. Just receive the deportees. Go ahead with whatever agreement you have with the United States of America. This is worrying. If indeed this is the advice the Attorney General gave, it is worrying.
But it's interesting because you actually being averted our minds to the fact that in Parliament, the NDC's got a very handsome and beautiful majority. And so if this went to Parliament, it would get an easy ratification. Why do you think that knowing that they can get it done, they still didn't take it to Parliament?
I am even surprised. I share the same view that, look, why don't you respect the provisions in our Constitution? Why don't you give that level of dignity to our Constitution? Why don't you just go to Parliament? It is not as if you have some deficiency when it comes to numbers in Parliament. You have an overwhelming majority. So you could have, and again, when you say that you inherited a lot of MOUs, it is a lie. Look, under the new Patriotic Party, if it is an MOU, if it is a treaty, if it is a convention, if it is an agreement, whatever it is, if indeed it will place any obligation on the country, the Foreign Affairs Minister then to Parliament for ratification. It is never true. He never inherited any of such MOUs.
Okay,
So this is so glaring. This is so. It is something straightforward. I mean, this is something you cannot even run away from. And it is.
So you're invoking the Supreme Court's jurisdiction for enforcement of Article 75.
Yes, because they have already delivered.
They have interpreted it already.
Yes, they went then. In fact, that during at that time, the Supreme Court argued that portion agreement cloaked national security issues for them not be argued. So during section of the process were held, yet that whatever agreement is the nature, the form, whatever conditions contained in there, you must bring it to Parliament. Okay. Let Parliament ratify it, because you are putting some obligations on Ghana. And that is exactly what is happening. And I'm surprised. This happened under former President Mahama, now President.
Okay.
Okujeto Ablaka was MP then. Honorable Dominic Ayeni, I cannot recall, but I think that he was an MP then. If not, he was a law lecturer, as I said, a very respected law lecturer, and I'm surprised. If indeed he gave such an advice, then it's a recipe for disaster. Then you wonder what kind of advice the Attorney General is giving out to Cabinet.
Okay. We definitely are curious to see how this will pan out in court. We'll be following it, and we'll be engaging you as well. So thank you for joining us on this matter. But Wanda, do I still have you?
Say it again. I didn't hear you.
I was just thanking you for your attention, and we'll be following this matter.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll be following this matter. Wanda, do I have you?
Yes. Yes.
I am happy that you're still here. So you followed the argument, and I let Nana go because Kofi, you're here. Yeah. You'll be able to fetch me some of the information I'll need from the opposition New Patriotic Party. But Wanda, why is it so difficult for the foreign minister to just get this ratified in Parliament?
Well, I don't think that the foreign minister said that. I hope the line is clear now.
Yes.
I do not think that the foreign minister's position is that it will not be ratified. What he stated was that it was a mere MOU. And in Ghana, MOUs are by law not strictly enforceable.
But the obligation is already...
Wanda help us with that law.
Please give me a... Sorry?
And Wanda help us with that law, which says that international MOUs are not binding. Which law? Which law?
Mere MOUs are not binding.
Which provision?
Well, because I moderate this conversation, I'm not going to let that question pass, especially because, Kwame, you know that there's always been that debate, is international law, you know, where people say that it's binding, not binding. So you would have your turn. Wanda. Wanda, I know he's a...
Yeah. So can I
yes, please proceed. Kofi, and don't interject again.
Yeah, the minister was very clear in his mind. He said that once the agreement is firmed up, they will do the honorable thing by invoking Article 75 of the Constitution.
But you have my attention, Wanda. Sorry, I promised I wasn't going to cut you. You have my attention. How are you enforcing an agreement, whether it is loose or hard?
I'm coming. Can I? No, I mean.
No, before you proceed.
Ask that question.
Before you
ask that question is to jump the gun.
No, hang on.
One, the minister has stated that in the interest of Pan-Africanism, in the interest of humanitarian grounds, and in the interest of the law, which states that neighboring countries like Nigeria and Gambia already by our immigration laws can visit Ghana for 90 days without a visit or without any of this lacuna we put in our way. And so it is already within the 90 days in the first place. Number two, Ghana has not received any money support.
But this analogy, Wanda, though, these people who can visit a country without a visa can take care of themselves, they can fend for themselves. Tell me how you can impute this same way with a person who is cuffed, who does not have a job, who does not have a house, coming to Ghana. You don't think that we're going to be burdened with certain responsibilities?
I think we're going back and forth on this issue.
No,
I'm saying that the basis for which, I am telling you that the basis for which government of Ghana has not gone to Parliament yet is that the agreements have not been firmed up. Number one.
But you are enforcing it. It's not an agreement.
Let me finish and then we say it. Now, first of all, the essence of ratification is that, in a layman's language, correcting an earlier action that was not supported by law. Is that it? And so it's not as though the ratification is not going to happen. As we speak, we had an emergency on our hand. Government of Ghana entered an agreement with the U.S. By MOU, and some of these people needed shelter now. Would you have rather waited for them to go through the pain and the agony of what they are going through in the name of ratification? It takes you forever, and lives are lost. So in the case where
is that what you get from the foreign minister?
I'm coming in cases where lives are at stake, and government of Ghana has gone into such an MOU. I think that one thing to do is to go on and do the law that you must practice before the camera. It says that you should. In the case that Henry Nabachi went to court over, that's very clear that what is simply that was taken earlier without the required basis law. And so if the people are in the president, including the foreign minister, still does the money over for ratification. So I do not think that we are away from that.
Wanda, stay with me. Just stay with me. Let me come back to stay with me. Because the network is not very favorable this morning. But Kwame, in my little readings, if he's explaining what ratification means, is that if the foreign minister went on in a certain agreement, you now come to Ghana to ratify it. I do not think that it means that the action should be ongoing before you come to Parliament to ratify it. I think that when you have gone on the memorandum of understanding or you have signed the agreements because of the international powers imputed in you, when you now come to Ghana, you come to Parliament and then ratify that document or that agreement with which you have gone into. I didn't think it meant that you can proceed to be enforcing a certain agreement before you come to Parliament to enforce it. Help us here.
Well, when it comes to ratification, honestly speaking, it can be done at any time. But the best practice would have been to bring this MOU before Parliament, before the 14 or so even touch down on our soil. Because this 90 days thing, I don't think, with all due respect to the Honorable Minister, he's doing very well. He's my fellow vandal from Commonwealth. We're there at the same time. On what basis did they touch down on Ghana soil? Did they apply for a visa? No, they did not. They were deported by the United States. And Parliament should have been privy to this agreement. Of course, when it comes to how ratification works, it means that you've done an act in your capacity as an officer of an institution or an organization, and you did not seek the consent of the board of directors. You can later bring it before the board of directors to either accept it or reject it. And it is not automatic. So it's quite a dangerous act that was done. It should have come before Parliament, before, they even landed. Because, be that as it may, NDC has a majority in Parliament. These are apparently, we heard some of them had been sent to their home countries. We later hear that they are still in custody. I don't have, my learned friend Baka Vomavo has applied for a mandamus to bring them before them, habeas corpus, okay. Habeas corpus to bring them before the court. So I don't know whether they are here or they've gone. But assuming Parliament, for some reason, refuses to ratify it, then that means that these 11 or 14 can take legal action against against the country.
Yeah, already.
Yeah. But they've already, yes. Already. So, well, unless Parliament was consulted in a way, because an MOU is a precursor to a substantive agreement. So the Honourable Minister is right in that an MOU is not binding. In legal parlance, an MOU is, we intend to do this. Okay. These are the modalities before you have the contract itself. But the MOU does not, it sets out the limits of the contract itself.
Can you start enforcing the MOU before you go to?
You have to sign the actual contract. But of course, the act has already been done, and the earlier it is taken to Parliament for ratification, the better. If it's taken to Parliament and it's ratified, then the action by Nana Boachi may become moot. But if it's taken to Parliament and it's not ratified, then we'll have a problem on our hands. But of course, you can really tell that with this majority, Parliament is likely to ratify. So the ratification is more or less a done deal.
Could it be because the foreign minister knows that well? It will be ratified anyway.
And it's possible that they had already been briefed, but they may be busy with other issues. Yes.
All right, Kofi.
Yeah. It's not right. You know, the fact that MOUs are signed before ratification doesn't mean the provisions of the MOU are effected before ratification. These are two different things. You sign it, you send it to Parliament for formal approval. This is what all parliaments do, you know. So when Parliament approves it, then you can effect the provisions in that MOU, which is what? Bringing those 14 detainees or the additional 40 that you want to bring. Now, what do we have on our hands? They have sued the government against their continuous detention. Why are they still being detained? Did they bring them to integrate them into the society, or they just brought them to detain them in military barracks and all? And MFI is clear. You know, this speaks to the government's continuous disregard for the other arms of government. They are just abusing their executive powers. You know, you've removed the Chief Justice, you want to weaken the judiciary. When it comes to the legislature too, you have to test already. Just follow the formal approval processes of ratifying such international agreements. MFA, whether it is an MOU, a treaty, an agreement, an international loan or whatever, once it is international in nature, Article 75 stipulates that it must go to Parliament for ratification before the provisions are implemented. It is straightforward. So they should admit the error and go to Parliament. Why do we go to Parliament, you know, on these things? So that all the parts of the House can contribute to the treaty. What are we getting in return? President Trump is very transactional.
Humanitarian grounds there. What do you want in return?
No, President Trump is someone who doesn't do anything for free. He has cancelled AGUA, you know, imposed tariffs. Almost everything he does is transactional in nature because he's a business.
But the foreign minister has been clear. He says that to our fellow African countries.
To Africa, yes, but the Americans are benefiting. They are expunging, you know, people who entered their country illegally. When United Kingdom signed a similar agreement with Rwanda, before the first refugee would touch on the soil of Rwanda, they had gotten £300 million already. You know, they negotiated it, it went to their parliament for approval, and they knew where they were getting in it. So fine, they are West African neighbors. We can get them and integrate them into our society. But if it had gone to parliament, probably the visa restrictions they have imposed on us, our executives and all that. Now ministers, aside ministers and judges, all government appointees have to go through interview processes for visa.
This action by Nanabi going to court, what's the worst that can happen? If they now take if they go to Parliament for ratification, they have majority in Parliament. The act will not be. It will be debated by the.
We are a nation of laws. Either than that, we would have just done things without going in the legal way. We are a nation of laws. Okay. So if the law courts establish that this is what the government should have done, next time they won't go through that process again. And what will happen? It will go through Parliament for ratification. Through that process, others will contribute and will get the best deal out of international treaties and agreements.
Okay. Well, stay with me. I've got Dr. Nanaya Miracle, international relations expert. Doc, it's a good time again to talk to you here on the show. So the foreign minister says that his hands are clean. There's nothing in it. It's just purely based on a humanitarian grounds. What do you say to this? We're not getting anything in return at all?
Well, I think it depends on where you sit on the side of the fence. You want to believe the words of the chief diplomat of the country that we are not getting direct financial benefit from this. But there's also what you call unconventional diplomacy and the dividends that yields out of it. You and I would agree that Ghana has not been, on the good side of the U.S. in terms of U.S.'s foreign policy. And I said the last time that it is not a case of Ghana alone. Ghana is not an outlier. What is happening is that we are just Ghana's situation is a product of U.S.'s foreign policy that is seeking to recalibrate across, the globe. But I think that there is always a means to resolve some of these backlash and the diplomatic row between U.S. and Ghana. And I think that as much as we are not having direct benefits in terms of say finances or in terms of funds, I think that this is one of the ways, and this is my thought. This is one of the ways that probably the current administration is seeking to change U.S.'s perception, as to how it deals with Ghana going forward, and compromise some of the harsh position U.S. has taken against Ghana. So there may not be direct financial resources, but when you argue, and this is the argument of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, that the U.S. approached Ghana as part of the country that it considers friendly allies. And if you understand, the milieu, the psyche of the current U.S. administration, which is what I said, is a transactional, pragmatic regime or government, then what Ghana is doing, in a way, in years to Ghana's benefit, maybe it will help to change some of these recent, policy initiative that U.S. has taken against Ghana. Maybe it helps with the visa arrangement, which has been reduced from 5 years to 3 months. Maybe there is a waiver, for the MCC that has been terminated. Maybe there is a waiver for a number of these things that U.S. has reversed towards, Ghana. So there may not be direct financial benefit, but let's see. Maybe this is part of a wider unconventional diplomacy, and it is time that will tell. We see whether this will benefit the country, or not.
If we ever enjoy any kind of benefit, would it be public knowledge to know that it was based on this act?
Well, if it's not just an MOU, and it has to go through Parliament for to become a legislative instrument, what you call domestication of this MOU, then everything has to be transparent. We have to understand what is in it for Ghana if it is submitted to parliamentary approval. But even my take on that, look, we understand that 14 deportees were sent to the countries on that first basis. The problem to me is that if you are taking an additional 40 migrants, considering the gravity, the magnitude of the implication it has on our national security, on our resources, and our reintegration capacity, I think it only makes sense that you submit it for parliamentary approval. And for me, look, the current administration has a majority in Parliament, so this wouldn't have any problem going through the process and receiving governmental approval. I do not want to hear the argument that if the situation is elevated, then the MOU will be submitted to Parliament. At what point do you consider it elevated? At what point do you consider it having met a threshold for you to submit it to Parliament? If you are going to do it later, you might as well do it now, because you want to set a very legal precedent. The fact that you've inherited a number of MOUs that were not submitted to parliamentary approval does not mean that it should be the case.
Right.
I understand what is happening. We are doing it anyway. We signed, ECOWAS protocol, and we are accepting West African nationals anyway. So this wouldn't be an outlier. But I think that the right things, ought to be done going forward.
Well, explain to me some of the things that will happen for a country not to want to take its own citizens. For example, they say there are some Nigerians and as well a Gambian. What are some of the factors a country will consider and say that no, we won't take our citizens? Is it because the U.S. would have to be the one determining the person's state of origin?
So the idea is that, and I think I've explained this before, the idea is that when people have stayed in the U.S. and overstayed their visas, or they have to be deported, they have to be issued legal traveling documents that the countries of origin right, issue their citizens before they enter the US. Now, when these documents are expired, the United States government cannot send these people back to their countries if the government is unwilling or unable to accept them. So when these traveling documents have not been issued, they cannot be sent to their various countries. Some of these countries are also contesting the legal grounds of the people that are saying they come from these countries. So in times past, Ghana, for instance, was not ready to receive these intended Ghanaian deportees because the Ghanaian government wanted to ensure that these were indeed Ghanaians before they issued traveling documents. But the Trump administration hasn't got the patience to wait to do this. And so it says that I'm now contracting third-party states to receive these migrants if they are willing to do so. And some other countries, some of these agreements have come at a financial reward. The Honorable Okujato said that at this point there is no financial, commitment. But the idea still remains that countries are not taking their citizens because they are not issuing. Some of them are not issuing the travel document that the US need to send them back, to their countries. And I think that some Nigeria, for instance, Nigeria said that it was not going to accept deported migrants. I mean, it's not taking deported migrants, and I am really not sure why the Nigerian government is not taking its own citizens, but they have to be routed through Ghana,
so they have 200 million
for them to be taken to their respective
200
countries.
million people.
Okay, so what does this mean? Currently, the 14 plus the 40 that will come, usually what's the norm? Then we as a country, Ghana, will start engaging their purported countries to what happens really after?
So there are existing ECOWAS protocols, and you see, this is a very slippery slope. We are starting with accepting West African deported migrants. I am hoping that eventually it has not spread, and I'm happy that the minister stipulated that it is only West African migrants, and these are people whose background have been thoroughly vetted, not only by the US, by the government of Ghana. And so I am only praying that it doesn't end up accepting other migrants from other countries, not West African, nationals. But to your question, once they are here, right? The state owes them that responsibility, especially if they are West African, nationals. That means that the existing ECOWAS protocols, cover them. But once they are here, then it means that the state is also responsible for either reintegrating them or sending them back to the countries they came from. And the government has indicated that the plan is to send them back to their countries. And so the onus then lies on the government of Ghana to then engage to the embassies of those countries in Ghana and then find a way to take them back. Okay. But mind you, some of these migrants are also not interested in going back to the countries that they come from. And that is why some of the 14 that are here have actually sued the government of Ghana on two grounds. One, the fact that they've been held more than 48 hours in military camps, the habeas corpus agreement. And then the second is that they are seeking to place an injunction on the government of Ghana to send them back to the country that they came from. So this has even taken a legal dimension, and we can only wait to see, what happens. The president of Ghana is giving, I'm sure he's going to address I'm told he's going to address the UN General Assembly.
Yeah.
Because this is a heated international development, I'm sure he might have a word or two to say about that. So, right. I mean, we can only wait and see what happens.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nanaya Amreku. Always excited to have a conversation with you. You make it quite simple for us, but we're almost done here. I'd give you a minute each to wrap up almost everything that we have said today. What would you want to wrap on, Kwame?
I would just say that this is an interesting case, and I just remember the issue of Kilmer Garcia, the 29-year-old man who was deported to El Salvador, and the U.S. court ruled that he had to be taken back to the U.S. And I think he's in the U.S. now as we speak. So it enriches our jurisprudence. So I think no one is above the law. So let's see how it pans out. If indeed these men end up having the agreement ratified, then we just have to speak to their countries to accept them, or they can be integrated here. Ghana is home to all West Africans and all Africans. I mean, we are very accommodating people. However, if it's found that there's any issue, then they will have to be sent.
Okay, I'll give you the last few seconds, but let me go to Wanda because I want to get him off the phone. Right. The network is not bad. Wanda, a few seconds for you to wrap this morning.
Excited about the observation of Ghanaians on this matter. I do not think that government has set out to do anything in respect to infringement of the law. Ratification remains like ratification. The law has also not stated how long it should take to ratify such agreements. Number two, if you have to go to Parliament to ratify such an agreement, it means that your speak only to arrive on account. Are you going to Parliament?
Unfortunately, Wanda, thank you for at least trying to hang in there for us for this conversation. Network hasn't been very kind, but Kofi, take a few seconds.
Yeah, MFI will end with Galamsey. The NDC, then in opposition, said everything about Galamsey. You know, from fighting it with AI to asking the then government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to declare a state of emergency. Speaking against deportation of foreigners engaged in Galamsey, they said they would prosecute them when they went power, but they are still repatriating them. They have not prosecuted anybody. They said they were even going to release all those we had, prosecuted because of Galamsey. Honorable Okudzeto stated about 15 things he thought could do to solve Galamsey. Now the boy is in their court. They should do those things to face Galamsey. President Akufo-Addo banned small-scale mining in April 2017. So the NDC cannot tell us 8 months is not enough to act on Galamsey. They should act now and stop blaming the NPP government, which is past and gone.
Kofi, thank you. Mommy, all the best on 21st, okay? And happy birthday to Osajifo,
and also
wherever he is.
22nd is my father, Kojobosio's birthday.
You know, we declared 21st as a holiday, but the NDC has rolled it back. They don't like Kwame.
Please wish your father a happy birthday.
I also want to wish my father, Mr. Kojobotio, a happy birthday.
Oh, wow.
Fans on the 2nd of
Father is a big man. Nice.
We thank him for all that he does for all those around him.
Thank you so much, Kwame. Thank you so much, Kofi. Thank you so much, Wanda. Dr.